That's all I
So what are we going to get a dime out of them?
I caught you mid-bite.
Oh, awesome.
To whom are you speaking? Oh.
Carol said start without her.
She's like 5 minutes away.
Yeah.
All
right.
Where's Pat? Wasn't she in the room?
You got 4.
Yeah.
Was Pat not in there?
Call the meeting to order. Call the roll.
That's not. That's good.
Trustee Fenton?
Here.
Trustee Dodge? Trustee Guerra? Trustee Ruzick? Trustee Calandrello?
Here.
Trustee Carroll? Here. Mayor Pico?
Here.
I don't hear what
Stand for the pledge.
Please rise for pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Okay.
Which one?
Good. So tonight we are going over the departmental operating budgets, but before that there were some changes to the original proposed budget. So in a moment Director Mampy is going to go over what those changes were, new revenues and some additional expenses that we needed to identify. Then we're going to go over each department, and we have all the directors here along with their support staff, so if there are any specific questions that anyone has, we'll be more than happy to answer those. At the end of this, Director Mampy has an amendment form that we were going to hand out to each official up there, and if there was anything that you wanted to add to the budget or take away from the budget, we would ask you to fill out the form, and then we're thinking that the next the final budget hearing we would have would be to vote any of those items up or down on that. That way that we make sure that we're capturing everything that the board wants us to have for the 2019 budget. So with that, I'm gonna pass this over to Director Mampy, and she's gonna go through the changes to the original proposed budget.
Okay, so I know you guys got a new book over the weekend, so this is the final revised proposed budget after the changes that we're going to kind of walk through. Like Joe said, we just want to kind of go through the departments today. We have slides that kind of talk high level about the changes within the departments, but then each department director will give you guys some more information. Any questions or whatever, just interrupt us. And then at the end, we'll kind of do a summary of all the other funds that we have to budget for that we don't necessarily talk about as part of a budget process. We'll just go through those really quick and then talk about the amendment process going forward. So as you can kind of see on the slide, we made some changes to the original proposed budget that was delivered to the board at the last meeting. All of these changes are reflected in the new book that you have. We received our July of 2018 sales tax collections, and they were pretty favorable, so we did factor in some additional sales tax for both our 2018 projections as well as our 2019 budget amount. And once again, those are reflected in the book. We increased both the sales tax and the home rule sales tax. We also had missed one of the new cell towers, the lease on the new cell tower, and that will be going to open lands. So we recorded that as open lands revenue. And then at our last meeting, we had talked about putting the theater program as a whole back into the budget. So we added back those, the revenues related to the theater as well as the expenditures. And I think Director Flores will go into a little bit more detail on that when she gives her presentation. We had some additional ERI participants that we factored into the budget, and that's that first amount that you see there. Performance management consultant, and Joe can go into a little more detail if he wants to on this. We're working on the strategic plan. Once we finalize the strategic plan, we need to develop performance measures for all departments that adhere to our strategic plan, and this is a consultant to help us do so.
And just to add on to that, within the coming weeks, in November, towards the middle of November, we will have the draft strategic plan that the board worked on this summer to the board to look at and see if there's any changes to that, and if so, adopt it. And as Director Mampietz had mentioned, that we will then develop performance measures and strategic measurable goals that are based on the goals and objectives that you have presented or that you've approved.
Okay, so we added some additional pool maintenance expenses. It was just a snafu of a lot of different people sharing one budget file, and we missed a few expenses, so we added those in. And then we had presented discretionary items in the water and sewer fund at the last hearing, and we did add those into the budget. The revenue that the water fund is going to generate is more than ample to cover these additional expenditures, so we did add that into the water budget. So those are all the changes that have occurred since our last meeting that are factored into the numbers you have in the book. Go ahead and flip it. So just kind of going forward, these are somewhat in department order, but not completely in department order. You can see I have just the dollar amount listed there, as well as the page numbers that contain the detailed budget for each of those departments. And then each department is just going to kind of talk through their slides, add any additional information that they feel appropriate, and then if there's any questions that the board has on those specific departments, we can either ask them then, or we could defer all the questions till the end, whichever you prefer.
Chairman?
Trustee Calendro.
I just have a quick question, overall about, and I don't know, I think we're getting into departments, from just overall original changes. So all that additional increase in revenue that you just talked about, does that all have homes already, or is that just extra capital out there doing, is this all already been spoken for, all this money?
Most of it has, yeah. With the changes that we made, that we factored in, the additional expenses that we factored in, the home rule sale, or I should say the sales tax has pretty much been absorbed. The home rule sales tax, we have a little bit additional to cover capital. We can come up
So
with
slide 3 is kind of where all the money went?
I'm sorry, pardon?
So slide 2 was the extra money, slide 3 was where it went?
Yes, yeah, pretty much.
Okay, thank you.
So there's about $80,000 in home rule sales tax available to fund additional capital if we so chose. With the capital or technology, I should say.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Carroll.
if I could just ask the village manager, that bottom line there, I know we'll get into departments a little bit later, but this is one that when we met in your office before the last budget meeting, you had stricken. It's back in again.
Which,
The deputy public information officer position? Remember, we were in your office and you had ruled that one out with your pen, and you were putting up a new version. Now it's back in there again.
no. That was the, in the clerk's office, we had inadvertently taken out.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what's currently under
Yes.
communications now.
This is, yes.
Gotcha, okay.
This was always in there from day one, all these right here.
Gotcha,
These are
okay.
just the two departments. If there are any questions, as I mentioned earlier, the transfer of our management analyst position down to the Business Information Services Division, is Director Florentine will note he's losing about 75% of his staff through the early retirement incentive program. And as a result, we believe there are some gaps that administrative gaps and some other gaps that we believe that our management analyst has the skill set and will really be able to provide some real value to assist Director Florentine in continuing his operations down there. Along with, he will continue to be looking at our Lean Six Sigma projects, along with help monitoring our performance measures as well moving forward. So we believe that is an efficiency there. And then, as mentioned earlier, to the receptionist in the front of the village hall, we will be that individual will be taking advantage of the early retirement incentive program as well. So we are looking at automating the phone systems a little bit more to help, and some electronic directories to help guide people where they need to go.
Yeah, in addition, the cashiers in the finance department will be able to take some of that traffic and direct them in the right place or help them as needed. I don't know if Stefani has anything to add.
So I would suggest we go to each department, and then if anyone has questions on that department, we will ask. Otherwise, we can keep, because I think we've seen this a few times.
Right, exactly. And so this is, if anybody has any questions on the village manager's budget and/or the public information office budget, those are the pages those fall under. I'll be more than happy to, between myself and Stefana and Carrie and John, will be more than happy to be able to answer those questions.
Are we going to use these books,
Yeah.
the pages, or are we
The
going
pages
with
are
the
right.
Yeah.
handout
Cora-
that you had? Or?
Yeah.
So far, the pages are following with the book.
Right.
Yeah, they should all, hopefully. Were there any questions on village manager's budget? And we can always go back to
Yeah.
whatever you guys want to go back to.
And just
If
for
not,
the
we'll
record,
continue
Trustee
on.
Ruzick has joined the meeting.
And then the PIO, yeah. So if there's no questions on public village manager, public information office, we believe that we'll have some, that with the staff there, we're going to be, and the experience that assistant village manager Keating has, that we'll be able to help fill in that gap as well with the loss of the deputy public information officer. So we'll have some additional, some consulting dollars in there if we need to pull someone in for assistance if need be. Okay.
So like I said, this kind of jumps around a little bit, so it's not necessarily in department order, but it's pretty close. So the finance budget, we don't really have any significant changes in 2019 to the actual finance department budget. We do have a position that will be eliminated in 2020 when we go live with the new human capital management system, but that change doesn't take place until 2020. We also have the finance water budget, which is part of the water fund, which is relatively large. I just wanted to touch on that the current rates, as stated in our village ordinances for water rates, are sufficient to cover the cost for next year. So we didn't have any issues with that. Also, there's a couple big changes that are taking place within the finance part of the water fund. We are starting to see a significant amount of debt service on the regional water system project with Oak Lawn, and that will continue to increase over time, obviously, as more of the bid packages begin and more of the dollars are spent. So next year, we have about $1.2 million factored in for debt service payments. Oak Lawn is borrowing all of the debt, and then we're sharing in the payment of the repayment of the debt. Increased waste management costs, our rates go up each year as per our contract, so you see some increased cost of refuse collection. And then there is a decrease in staffing costs. We had one position within the finance department that was charged to water that was eliminated. It was an account tech 2. The employee that was in that position is being transferred to Public Works, but it does reduce our head count by 1. That position was eliminated and won't be filled again.
I see a number of expenses that are up, and I think that is related to the stickers, the postage, all that. Okay.
Yeah, this is
I
a
just wanted
vehicle
to
sticker
confirm.
season. Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
I just have a question. In 2018, the projected budget was $1,471,462, and then for 19, it's up. So, and I know he just mentioned about the postage or whatever, but what was the target budget for, I'm just comparing this like to Public Works. They were given a target and they came in 10,000 under the target. So what was your target, and did you come in under it at all?
Yeah, I think our target was like $40,000, and we probably came in at about $39,000. I know we cut a little bit of training. We cut a couple of our subscriptions. We cut our subscription to the Illinois TIF Increment Association. But our target is very, very small. Most of my department is personnel related. The increase you see here is really related to the vehicle sticker sale, as well as there's probably people that are still in steps within my department that would get step increases. We have the postage and the printing for the vehicle stickers, and I think that amounts to about $80,000 a year. Anything else on this? We can continue on. Frank, you're up.
Good evening, everybody. So some changes, of course, to the department will be around adding more software to help increase efficiencies. We'll be bringing online the Tyler ComDev, as well as potentially some other Tyler suites that'll help the law enforcement individuals as they're on the street writing tickets using electronic pads to be able to write those tickets rather than using paper-based tickets. We're implementing Laserfiche this year, and we'll continue to scan into next year so that we can eliminate all the paper waste we have going on.
No.
Okay. And also we'll be implementing DocuSign this year to eliminate some of the wet ink signatures that we're doing today and reduce the amount of paper we have going back and forth. So also we're going to increase our outsourcing. We'll be doing that because I will be losing 75% of my staff. So we are looking to bring in contractors to help assist, whether it be from a server perspective or a network perspective. Also to help fulfill some project management roles as we move into the software, more of the software. And then the big one will be the human capital management. That's the one where the largest increase of cost will be into next year and successive years.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenn?
So my question is to Frank. Your department is taking a 75% reduction in staff. Are you going to be able to do the job?
There will be services that will be impacted. The services that will be impacted will be around support and how quickly we can get to the issues as they happen. Of course, more critical business continuity issues will come first, whereas help desk, users' PCs, Wi-Fi may be out, things of that nature may take a back seat to a larger issue that may be going on. Those are things that we just don't think contractors are going to be able to fulfill those roles. And with the interns that we have today and our part-time staff, we'll have to divvy up the responsibilities a little bit more. Also with the management analyst coming down, he'll be able to help out with writing agenda items, helping with POs and requisitions, so helping to fulfill and helping to do research on new technologies that we may be looking at to implement and help me out from that standpoint. So my job personally becomes more tactical and less strategic because I will be helping out more with the day-to-day rather than focus on more of the strategic and the leadership aspect of it. So it'll be a much different blend.
So you're taking a great hit in services, yet we've got money in here funding things that don't affect services, and yet they're in the budget. That could be cut, and you could get more money for your department. So you wouldn't be functioning at 25%.
Trustee Fenton, if I could address that, we did some of these additional revenues that we had identified. We had earmarked for additional resources for Director Florentine for contractors and consultants to assist where he needs the help in order to make sure that his department continues to function and that he's successful with his projects.
Doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like a bad decision.
Well, these
My
three-
opinion, I'm
yeah.
only one of 7.
No.
Or 6 sitting here.
Understood.
Stefan brought up a good point. We are bringing in or promoting one individual from a part-time position to a full-time position. He's the junior system administrator today. He is shadowing Norm, and he'll be shadowing Norm for the remainder of his tenure with the organization. And we do plan on using him in a much greater capacity than he's being used today, for sure.
And Trustee Fenton, if I can, and Director Florentine may be able to speak a little bit more on this, but when we were going through the early retirement incentive program and we were looking at assumptions and filling positions and unfunding positions and everything, we had the director's input on that. Those were not just made in a silo. What had happened, though, is that one of the individuals that we thought might stay until 2020, June 30th of 2020, had made the announcement that they would be leaving at June 30 of 19, which does give it a little bit more challenge, but it's hence one of the reasons why we did increase the dollars for Director Florentine's department to provide more consulting or contractors to help come in and assist and fill in the gaps where we can. So I don't know if Director Florentine wants to address that anymore.
I mean, we're going to need more of a project management role. The individual who decided to leave a little bit earlier, she's really keen on our software side of the house. And from that standpoint, from the project management of that software and going forward with the new software we'll be implementing, we're going to need a strong project manager as well as technical project manager to be able to massage the software, lead the software vendor to where we want them to go. So with that, I think that's still a good role we can outsource, and we still can effectively manage what we need to manage.
And there
One
is,
of the things I see here is the full-time, so we're losing all of the staff, but the full-time's going from 523 grand to 597. So can you square that for me? Why?
yeah,
we're
and
losing-
you'll see this, I'm sorry, you'll see this in a number of departments. As we factor in the cost of the ERI, there are some employees that have significant accrual payouts that they'll be receiving. So those numbers are factored into the budget because we have to budget for that payment. So next year, when you see that same salary line item, it's going to be significantly less.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Carroll?
Director Florentine, I think I already know the answer to this, but when I first heard about the reduction percentage-wise in your staff, I was concerned that we'd be able to keep the same core services if we had an outage. We've had a couple of them since you've been here that were handled very promptly. But as I kind of thought through it, most of those instances, you still had to wait for hardware to get here, replacement parts, et cetera. Are you confident that the outsourcing people that might be assisting you in any hypothetical scenario like that would be able to respond, maybe not exactly as quickly as your staff has been, but within a reasonable, proximity thereof?
We'll always negotiate SLAs as part of this.
Right.
And, the best SLAs out there are 4-hour response times. The best you could do is manage those SLAs.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions on BIS? Continue on. Development Services?
You ready? All right. The majority of the changes made to the Development Services budget this year are related to the personnel services. As reflected on the slide up here, we are actually taking two, as you guys are aware, two full-time positions. One is our electrical building inspector, and one is our senior property maintenance inspector, down to two part-time positions. There is also two additional part-time plan reviewer and building inspector positions that we are eliminating beginning January 1st of this next year. And then on the engineering transportation division, we are taking the field construction engineering position, that is a full-time position, and we are outsourcing those services. We're getting proposals for the outsourcing of those right now. So the biggest impact we have on development services is as it relates to personnel. In addition, in order to meet our target, we had to also cut miscellaneous engineering. Usually we have $15,000 in our budget for that. Those are those things that come up, surveys, phase ones, small little projects that we may have to work on during the year. As well as every year we do traffic count updates on certain intersections, and this year that has been eliminated from the budget as well. I did submit those on a discretionary request list as reflected on the slide, and if additional funds are available, then that's something the village manager would consider for funding as funds become available. Other than that, it's pretty much status quo budget. As it relates to open lands, that's also in your budget book as well. Open lands, the way those works, those are both open lands as well as the Stellwagen Farm are submitted always through discretionary request to the village board. And this year, the operating expenses such as electricity, security, things like that are funded in the budget. However, there were a couple of other discretionary requests such as some fencing and gates and things that were requested but were not funded currently within the budget. As for the History Museum, History Museum does fall under now. This is the first year we kind of moved it under Development Services. Sarah provides support not just for the History Museum, but she's also taking over support services for the Stellwagen Farm as well, and there's a synergy between the Stellwagen Farm and the History Museum as well, and their requests are also included in your budget. Again, those come through Development Services, but they really are coming from the commission members themselves. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
Just wanted to let everybody know, I don't know if everybody's aware of the fact that Sarah secured a $5,000 donation for 2018 for the museum and another $5,000 donation for 2019, and this money is going to be used for restoration at the Hoster Cabins.
Good to hear.
And all of her programs are all self-funding at the museum.
All good? Keep going?
Yep.
John?
Public Works. Public Works is excited about some of the opportunities that we have as part of the 2019 budget. Some of it is rather bittersweet, but we are excited. We are going to see some cost efficiencies, some cost savings that we'll see in 2019 as part of work that we're doing in 2018. That includes our LED streetlight conversion program, the facility lighting upgrades where we're converting to LED or the T8. Some minor one is the BidNet implementation, which is the use of BidNet instead of having to publish in the newspapers. Those are minor savings, but they're still savings nonetheless. The bittersweet part is the discontinuation of the PACE program. We will be losing one full-time staff. I just want to note that one full-time staff is also one of our B-team snowplow drivers. So that will reduce our B-team. Included with that is 2 part-time. There's also an additional part-time staff that's going to be eliminated that works between the V&E and the transportation division. One of the many savings that we're going to have as part of the elimination of the PACE program is within V&E. There is some cost savings with regards to the repair of the buses that we'll see. We're going to be we're eliminating 2 maintenance worker 1 positions in the street division. One of those maintenance worker 1's positions is an A-team plow driver. So that will impact the B team because we'll have to pull somebody up. So once again, we're down on the B team. The other maintenance worker 1 is a B team driver already. He works on the night shift. That position has been eliminated. So the impact of that on our snow plowing is we will go from having 4 people that work overnight, and generally that's from 11 o'clock or midnight until 2 or 3 when the A team comes in. So we'll only have 3 people instead of 4 people. Keep in mind that the B team is also what backfills the A team when there's scheduled or unscheduled absences. So our B team will be somewhat smaller this year. The other reductions are the elimination of the project manager. To cover that, we are going to be looking at increasing our use of contract service such as CBEL for helping us manage some of the larger projects that we're doing. We'll also be able to redistribute some of that workload to other managerial staff. As Anne Marie had indicated, we're going to be gaining a full-time person. It's actually replacing a full-time person that had previously left as part of the ERI. It was my intention to replace that person with a part-time. Through Anne Marie's idea, we're able to move some of the functions of the water meter reading down to Public Works. So we're gaining some of those responsibilities. But the benefit is that position works very closely with some of the existing staff that does the meter service. So I'm anticipating we'll see some significant efficiencies there as well. Let me see. There were a few discretionary requests that I just wanted to bring up. One of them was for the miscellaneous paint and body repairs. As we defer the replacement of vehicles, our larger trucks, there is a request for $10,000 that's currently not funded to help maintain the back end of those trucks, the bodies, which are reaching the end of their service life. And the other request that is would help in efficiency is actually a request from the BIS. It's to change some of my senior staff's desktops to laptops, which would provide the efficiency of having their ability to be more mobile in doing their work. That's about it. The rest of the budget is pretty straightforward. It's pretty consistent with what we've had in years past. One thing I would want to offer, we're eliminating 2 maintenance worker 1 positions, and in doing that, we're switching from doing the majority of our concrete work in-house to doing it as a contract service. So we've had to increase the contract service function, but we feel that using a contract service, they're going to be able to devote more personnel than we can do, and hopefully react in a more timely manner for doing restorations. What we'll see is some of that cost is spread between the general fund and also into the water fund as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton?
Just a comment that, John, you and your staff did a fantastic job on this, on your portion of the budget. I just want to remind the board that one of the things we said, that we didn't want to affect services to the residents, and the cuts that this department has made is going to be affecting services to the residents. Whether it's minor or major, it's going to depend on how much snow we get. So be prepared for the phone calls, when we're sitting here finally deciding, what we're funding and what we're not funding when it comes to the services that go to the residents.
I do want to just make one statement. We will continue to get the services down. There could be a delay, a slight delay, as Trustee Fenton has indicated, depending on how much snow or what have you that we have. But I assure you, we will continue to provide the services to the residents on
Right,
both
but my
internal and
point
external.
is, we're also funding things that aren't direct services to the residents that wouldn't delay the snow plowing. And granted, when two snowflakes fall, we don't have to have, plows out there, but just there again, my opinion, one of 7 individuals.
Understood.
You got one more slide, John.
Oh, me again. The water budget is very consistent with what it has been in years past. Just a couple things of note. We did add funding for fiber optic locating. That's going to be done in conjunction with District 135 and District 230 as an IGA. As we get more fiber optic into the ground, we're utilizing conduits that were put in place by District 135, so we're going to partner with them on locating. The only other comments that I would make are the discretionary requests. One is $16,000 to clean towers number 4 and number 7. As we continue to move forward with our tower rehabilitation program, the cleaning has proven very effective and very cost-effective at keeping the towers presentable. Another request is $5,000 for hydrant markers, just a simple thing to keep on making sure that the hydrants are located. The other big one I just want to talk about very briefly is $120,000 to complete our conversion to SmartPoint. SmartPoint provides water meter reading using our fixed network. So in other words, what we currently do by doing drive-by reads is now done from the office. It's a two-way communication that allows us to read the meters, so we don't have to go to houses and get finals. We can eventually allow a customer portal. We can work with Census or other third-party providers and implement a customer portal, so we can allow access for the residents to look more closely at their water billing in a near live methodology. The other nice thing about the fixed point system that we have, should we so choose, we do have the ability to use it to communicate with our streetlights. We put a simple module on top of the streetlights, and the streetlights would then communicate through our fixed network system that we have in place, and it'll tell us when there's a problem with the streetlight. It'll tell us when the streetlight is out, so we can go repair it before the residents do it. It also has, again, a two-way communication, so we have the ability to turn streetlights on or off from the computer, or to blink streetlights if there's something going on and we want to make some type of notification. So the fixed network has been a great investment, and the $120,000 will complete the communication for the water meters.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Guerra.
John, how long have we been phasing that system in? It's a couple of years?
It's probably been at least 3 years.
3 years. And this would finish it?
14.
This will finish, yes. What we were 3 years ago, we were faced with having to make a decision. We could either replace the batteries on the previous transmitters, or we can upgrade to the fixed network. And what we're doing is, in combination with that, we're also changing out to the iPro meter from the standard Census SR meter, and that creates a fully robust automatic meter reading system.
So this is a great efficiency, too, that we started a few years ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Trustee Guerra, if I could just add a little bit to that. So our meter reading process, we used to spend about a week every month driving around the village collecting meter reads. Now we're down to about 2 days. By the end of next year, we won't be driving around at all. And it's not only an efficiency for us, but like John had alluded to, it's also going to give our residents the ability to utilize the portal to see their usage down to the gallon if they have the right type of meter on a daily basis. So it's really going to, the system that we invested in 4 years ago, we spent a lot of money, but we're going to be fully using it, and our residents are going to be able to use it also.
I'd love to see that finished if the money presents.
Yep.
And we do have the money in the water fund to do this. So the three things that I just talked about with the discretionary are included currently in the proposed budget.
Oh, so they're not just discretionary for the village manager's office, they are in the water fund?
Yeah, they had been presented
been
as
funded.
discretionary requests, but we built them in because we had enough revenue available to cover those costs.
Excellent.
I-
Nice job, Jack.
Trustee Carroll.
Just like to point out too, for the village manager, you might want to even speak with the chief about that streetlight issue. There might be some law enforcement angles that you could play with that as well too, turn a light on or off.
That's actually one of the things that the providers that we've talked to have indicated. If I could, just one more neat thing. I'm sorry. So
You have the floor.
Yeah, this is my last budget meeting.
Aw.
So the water meters, with the communication system, we also have the ability to have two-way communication. Census has just come out with a water meter that actually has a solenoid valve built in. So now when we have to do shutoffs, if we know that there's a chronic resident, we can, if we have that meter installed, we're not going to install it everywhere, but we could actually either turn down or turn off their water meter without even having to go out to the resident. It really becomes beneficial if we have problems in areas where we have difficulty getting to the shutoff, such as in condo buildings, where we don't want to shut off the entire building, obviously, just individual units. So a lot of great possibilities that go along with this system.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee
Just
Guerra.
one brief comment. John, a couple years ago, I told you how impressed I was by learning just exactly what your department entails. When we first had this format. It continues. Thank you.
I like talking public works.
All right, you want to keep going? Tim?
There are only a couple of significant changes to the police budget from last year, but first of all, let me point out that from 2016 to 17, we had a 14% drop in crime. And as of September, completed 75% of the year, we're pleased we're down 12% again in crime, and in particular, crimes against person or violent crime is down 43%, and property crime down 11%. So the trend is going in the right direction. From the standpoint of increased revenue, which I didn't put in up here, we added, the board approved an administrative fee for arrests. We have about 1,700 arrests per year. We cannot hold the person until they pay the $50 like bond, but we still estimate that it'll bring in about $35,000. We got about $60,000 worth of grants this year, $30,000 from Illinois Chiefs. Secret Service gives us about $15,000 in asset forfeiture sharing. Orland Funeral Home, $4,000, which we received today, and Mazda of Orland Park, $10,000. Now, the $14,000 between Mazda and the Orland Funeral Home is designated solely and specifically for purchasing bulletproof vests. And we are on the 50-50 grant with the federal government for those, so it goes an awful long way. The ESDA budget did not change at all, within just a few $1,000s of last year. At the moment, one of the things we did do was cut our overtime budget by $100,000, which is going to be replenished by the fact that yearly we are probably save about $300,000 in salary due to the hiring process for police, because they retire, the academy, next academy might be 3 or 4 months later, so there's a minimum of 3 months saving. When you're talking about a step 7 police officer, you're talking well over $100,000. So we cut the police overtime budget by $1,000, but we're certain we're going to replenish it easily next year. In fact, we are delaying the hiring of police. Right now, I have 3 vacancies, with a 4th coming at the end of the month, which is another retirement. 2 of them will go to the academy in January, possibly 3, and 1 in May. So we'll be replenishing those funds fairly quickly back into the overtime budget. I had no discretionary requests. As I said, we're down 4 officers, 4 of 8, 3 and 4 at the end of the month. But we also have to deal with a lot of injuries. We have 6 injuries right now, officers that are off, 3 that were in accidents where they were rear-ended. One of them will be back in 2 weeks, and the other 2 are still out indefinitely, and several others that have minor injuries. So we're down quite a few people, but they slowly come back, and our full-time numbers fluctuate like that almost all the time based upon injuries, retirements, and vacancies from resignations and so forth. Court Smart training, it's somewhat duplicative of our Police Law Institute training, so we're going to look at that for a year of not doing it. And I think that's basically the highlights of our budget. I'd like to point out we're increasing our field camera system, which is one of the most efficient ways we have of detecting and investigating crime, and we are continuing to expand that. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
I have a couple of questions. One, just on page 53, the last item, insurance broker's fee, it's quite a bit higher. Is that just some kind of an accounting change?
Yeah, so we modified the way that we allocate those fees from the insurance fund. So in past years, we had just allocated the actual broker fees related to our health insurance broker. This year, we added in the workers' comp premium as well as the expenses related to our wellness events. So we're allocating those out to the departments to fund the insurance fund where the expenses are charged to.
Okay, so everyone's budget has increased numbers? Okay.
Yep.
And then second, Tim, would there be more technology that you would like if there was money to be found? For example, the field camera you mentioned.
Those are being paid for via 911 funds.
Okay.
And we are the most efficient operation when it comes to putting up cameras some of our neighbors to do an intersection that costs them $250,000. It costs us about $40,000 or $50,000. We build them ourselves. We buy them, build them, and put them up ourselves. Over the years, we've developed a wireless network on our water towers, so we don't have any fees for cellular or anything like that. So highly efficient, but we do have several discretionary items in the MIS budget, but none of them are critical. None of them are critical.
Short staff. Who needs officers?
Recreation?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Guerra?
Just to point out for the chief, I had a conversation with the head of security at Orland Square the other night, and he was very complimentary of our police department. He did 30 years in Kansas City, a considerably larger community. He was telling me how very impressed he is with Orland Park.
I should also mention that Simon, we got a grant last year for about $35,000 for overtime for police officers, full-time and part-time, for additional control of Orland Square Mall, and it's going to be increased this year. Gary was number 2 there, and the gentleman left with Schauber, he took over, so he's very experienced, and we've been with him for years now, so it's time for him to move up.
Schomburg's learning from us, right? Schomburg's learning from us.
Keep going. Recreation?
Hello. All right, so to get started, you'll notice that recommend registration. We will be reducing the recommend registration office will be removed, and walk-up registration will open up at Sportsplex solely in spring of 2019. The primary registration operation will, again, I'm reading the same line over, so bear with me. Will be at Sportsplex with the opportunity to develop registration at Village Hall. As a result, we'll be reducing 2 full-time clerical positions with a savings of $202,000. Again, using Village Hall as an opportunity to begin registration will be a convenience factor for our patrons that may come here to get a village sticker and whatnot. In addition to that, we're going to be encouraging our users to take advantage of the online registration, as we continually do, but we're really going to push that forward as well. And there'll be a reduction in part-time hours at Sportsplex, and we'll be improving the Sports Central desk operation with more experienced full-time clerical representatives. So we'll be more customer-friendly over there by having full-timers rotating back and forth to Sports Central and the registration office at Sportsplex. Centennial Park aquatic hours, we've identified some opportunities there to reduce some hours. Early bird swim and Riverwalk require clerical staff and lifeguard staff to open up the facility at 6:15. There's approximately 214 participants who take advantage of that opportunity. Instead, we've proposed that we'll move the early bird Riverwalk and lap swim to 8:15 a.m. during our Learn to Swim hours. We already have staff there. I have my clerical team there. So by moving it back 2 hours, we'll already be open for the day. And that reduction in hours will result in approximately $17,000 in savings. Another efficiency that we identified at the pool is our back-to-school hours. If you recall, in 2018, we had reduced some hours of operation that we would be opened, and then we also reduced some of the hours of our opening. So we tightened up the hours a little bit when District 135 went back to school. What we identified through that was on 8/14, 15, 8/19, and 8/20, those dates were very slow at the pool. It could have been a myriad of things. Again, kids going back to school, kids participating in their fall programs, as well as the temperatures. So we identified those days to close. So those 4 days will be closed during the week. And again, we don't see or anticipate any adverse effect to the pool patronage by doing that. In theater, as we've talked about at the last meeting, we've evaluated and identified other community theater staffing levels and determined that most organizations have the role of the director or producer as a contractual position. This, again, not only saves staffing dollars at the tune of about $18,000, but creates an opportunity for staff and the Art Commission to take a fresh look at theater and identify opportunities to grow the thespian community through diverse leadership. The Winter Wonderland Ice Rink, we've identified some time periods during that while we're opened over there. And the ice rink is tricky because the temperatures are always iffy during that Thanksgiving to February timeframe. So what we looked at was shaving off a few hours at the front end of our operations and the back end. The primary use is usually during the timeframe when the kids are off school. But with that being said, we were eliminating the special events, so the Skate with Santa, the Turkey Bowl, and the bonfires. So by reducing those and shaving off time on the front end and the back end of the skate rink opportunity, we feel that'll be a good savings and also minimal effect to the user. Sportsplex, we're reducing the open gym attendance staffing hours during the month of November. Again, the gyms really get busy at Sportsplex when it starts to get cooler outside. With that being said, November's still tricky. There's still kids that are outside and it hasn't really stepped up to that point where we need those hours for that position. So by reducing the hours during the month of November, we felt like that would be a good cut that really wouldn't have an adverse reaction to our patrons. And then also our childcare hours from 1 to 4 p.m. We noticed the usage patterns at Sportsplex, and those patterns between 1 and 4, the child care area isn't used as heavily. So we thought, during that time period, that could be a good savings as well. The green program, we have eliminated the green program. That was a part-time position, but we have identified opportunities to utilize that person as a contractual. The green programs that will be remaining are the projects that are partnered with other agencies. So a lot of those recycling projects will still be going forward. We'll just be having the supervisor execute those programs. We also have a preschool aid that staff has recommended to reduce from the preschool program. Again, inconsequential, they feel confident enough that by reducing that position, they could still continue with their program and their process. As far as efficiencies go, I just wanted to put this out there as well. Typically in the past, we haven't had registration at the pool, or if we were adding classes or calling off waiting lists, that would be done at Sportsplex. Now what we've done is created a one-stop shop during the time frame the pool is open. So if somebody needs to be called to come in and register, if we're calling off the waiting list, whether it's learn to swim, we have the staff there. They will actually be doing it, and we won't be sending them to Sportsplex. That may sound trivial, but we have seasonal staff that operate the pool clerical operation out there. So we've really spent a lot of time with training them and getting them in a place where they understand the process thoroughly. So they are now executing that. And then staff will also be activating in 2019, pending budget approval, When to Work scheduling program. It's a software program. This will save time with staff creating multiple paper calendars, it'll provide up to the minute accuracy with no scheduling. It'll allow staff immediate access to their schedule via smartphone or desktop computer, and it'll eliminate the need for bulky spreadsheets. So CPAC has been using this software for the last couple of years with a lot of success, so Sportsplex will start utilizing it in the upcoming year. So that will really take a lot of time off staff's hands and doing a lot of the paper manual allocation to staff. You'll also notice that as far as the taste, we're very excited. If you recall, we sat with various departments, the Public Works Department, the Police Department, Parks Department, and really sat down and worked hard to find some reductions for the upcoming taste in 2018. With that being said, we came up with as far as expenses go this year, with $11,000 in staffing expenses, totaling, when we look at Kids Day, Orland Park's Got Talent, Friday night community stage, and with staffing, we found a total cost savings of $14,000 that we were able to shave off from the taste on the front end, working together collaboratively. Also with revenues, when we had talked last year, we had determined that we did not want to start charging for the taste. So what we did is we looked on the back end of taste and determined how we could bring in more revenue. So what we did was we, as you know, we increased non-alcoholic sales revenue. We increased the alcohol sales. We also received the Payless Loyola sponsorship, and we added additional restaurants. We added 3 additional restaurants. So with all that taken into account, that brought in $90,000 in additional revenue on the back end that really, didn't affect the customer coming into the taste. So what you may notice is for the Taste of Orland Park for 2018, historically, when you look back in 2017 and 16, the actual net income was $85,000, was $99,000. This year, the actual net income was $11,000. So we were able to shave off from just last year, $85,000 in terms of subsidy, and correct me if I'm wrong, to $11,000.
Yeah, so it wasn't actually not net income, it was a net loss.
Net
So
loss, sorry.
You decreased your net loss
But
over the years.
it feels like a good win. That's a lot of money to shave off. So again, we were very excited about Payless Loyola and getting that sponsorship. We have reached out to them and met with them already. We are touching back with them in November. They're both working on their budgets, so they were very pleased and excited with their collaboration with the village. They are very excited about joining us again this upcoming year, but they're working through the process. Staff has sat down in terms of identifying further sponsorships, and as you know, Orland Park Mazda has agreed to sponsor various special events. As the chief had mentioned, the $10,000, so a total of $84,000 is what he's contributing to the village. $74,000 is going to special events, and of that $74,000, he wanted a certain amount to go towards day camp shirts and another amount to go towards Sportsplex for banners inside the facility and banners outside at our athletic fields. So with that being said, for 2019 special events, we've been able to show let me get this sheet. Sorry, guys. I've got a lot of documents here.
Director Flores is looking for that. We are also following up currently with the sponsorship event that we had a few weeks ago to see if any of those individuals that came are interested in giving us any larger sponsorship. So we're in the process of following up with all of those vendors.
Yep, so what we're doing with the vendors is we are emailing the vendors that were in the attendance with photos from the event, again, touching back, saying, I hope you had a great time, and opening the door for further conversation. The vendors that weren't able to make the event, will be emailing them, saying, we missed you, we wish you were able to come by, and then open the door for that conversation as well. As a result of the sponsorship from CJ Wilson Mazda, we have a subsidy reduction for special events of a little bit over $15,000. So we're pretty darn excited about that. In addition, generally speaking, for sponsorships, I call them our grassroots sponsors, but what our supervisors are doing on a daily basis, we brought in $154,000 in sponsorships just for the day-to-day programs and events.
And Joe, I know we gave you approval to look at for some concert acts and things like that. So I was just curious to know where that's at, since those should be budget neutral events next year if we find the acts. And I know now it's the time frame for that.
Right,
How
exactly.
are we coming on that?
So we have engaged Double D, which is the contractor that the board had authorized us to use to try and identify the acts. Of course, as we had stated before last meeting, that was contingent on formal approval for the board. So if the board so wishes to do this, we can bake in some revenues that we know that we would obviously get from the sales of the tickets and alcohol sales and everything with that as well. So one of the things that we'd ask is that it be part of the, the amendment forms that we could get, or just before the end of tonight, if we can, ask the board for the
I'll fill one out.
go or no-go on that. I know that Trustee Dodge has already mentioned to me on the telephone 2 weeks ago that he was in support of that. I know, Mayor, he had expressed that to you again tonight, but I would ask for the board's, right, he's not here tonight. I'd ask if we could not wait until the amendments are voted on November. Tonight would be great before we leave, if we can say if it's a go or no-go, just because, like I had mentioned before, we have engaged them to at least start looking to get that, and if they're able to get something, then we'd like to act on it sooner, and if not, we'd like to tell them there's no worries in moving forward with it, but that would be at the direction of the board. Whichever way the board wants to go, we're ready to go.
Okay. Any comments? Any comments from the board?
Anything else on special events or taste? Anything?
Do we want to just ask about?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Are there any comments from the board on the concerts?
On the concerts? Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Guerra.
I guess I'll start it out. How many concerts are we talking?
Well, we had authorized Joe to do up to 3, up to 100,000 a concert, which would require, as I do the math, about 3,800 tickets each concert at $35 a piece to break even, based on our numbers. But like last year, we had some acts that were like 50,000, so obviously those numbers go down if we have that. So we authorized them up to 3.
Okay, so I guess I'll start the conversation off. I know you and I both met together and separately with the mayor of New Lenox, because this is obviously something they've been doing for a while. They're triple play, and they have the facilities where they have a permanent stage, they have sound system, they have the groundwork right there, the structure for these events, and they don't break even on it. I think with the conversation we just had about 18 positions that are eliminated, plow drivers that are not going to be available, different services that will be reduced to our residents or delayed, I don't know how in good conscience any one of us considers something that I know you say is revenue neutral. We have no way of knowing that. We've never done one. To me, it would not be something I could stand up in front of this village and say, I support allocating hundreds of thousands of dollars, but if your street doesn't get plowed this winter, you need to be patient. I don't see it.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Carroll.
Yeah, as I've said at a couple of previous meetings, I've had an interest in having larger scale concerts in this village, at least back since I was in my early 20s, which was only a few years ago, mind you. But, and I've specifically, with regards to Centennial West, have had an interest long before the village took ownership of that property. At one time, like I mentioned, there was a cooperative venture that was being explored by the Lions Club and Mr. DiPaolo that originally owned that land, to put a Ravinia South type of venue out there. So I've had an interest in it forever. But like Trustee Guerra said, when we're talking about the cuts we've expected from all of our department heads, when we've talked about potentially having a slower response time on our snowplows, the slower response time on our building inspectors and our code enforcement inspectors, all the efforts we put in through Lean Six Sigma and high performing organization training to speed up the business permit or building license and permits process to potentially be slowed down by these budget cuts. And most importantly, all the rhetoric that's been put out by members of this board over the last few months during this budget process about trying to flatten the curve on our HR costs, our employees, asking them to take more and more responsibility of their health care costs, asking them to consider, or at least our non-union employees, to take no COLA raises, cost of living adjustment raises, in the same time that they're still within a STEP program. And there's been discussion about trying to have the village manager and his budget team staff negotiate that into next collective bargaining unit contract. So we're doing all of this to cut and considering $300,000 in concerts, I share similar reservations. Now, I know, and you've vocalized it wisely, Mr. Mayor, we hope, or it should be revenue neutral. But like Trustee Guerra said, I've spoken with members of the New Lenox Village Board, and they tell me that after 10 years of their triple play program, they're still not breaking even. And despite Mayor Balderman telling us that it's been selling out, it's only going to village residents, I personally know multiple people that don't live in New Lenox that have been granted access to those tickets because they can't sell them out. So I love the idea of a concert program, and I've never strayed from that position. But with all those things considered, he's either lying to us or someone else is, or I don't know what's going on, but I do know I've talked to 2 staff members that have talked to their counterparts or their contemporaries in New Lenox. They all said they're not breaking even. I've spoken with village board members in New Lenox. They say they're not breaking even. It's just, unless we also talk about additional revenue coming in, I can't personally get behind the expense.
Any other comments? Trustee Fenn?
Not to reiterate everything that they just said, but I totally agree with everything that they just said. And I was on the board when we got all excited about making the Colette Highlands Park area down there, Centennial West, whatever you want to call it, into a Ravinia South. And like Trustee Carroll said about the Lions Club, we had talked about doing a joint venture down there and that. Under the circumstances right now with the budget the way we have it, and there's no guarantee, granted there's no guarantee in life about anything, I would not be in favor of spending the money just because the money's not there, and if for some reason we can't do it, we don't make the money, where's the money going to come from? And we're already, I think, asking not only staff to cut back, reduce, this village board, all of us up here, we need to cut back, look at our budget and reduce that also, and then to go out and spend that money when it's not a for sure thing. I just don't think we're capable of doing it right now. Years ago, if we would have done something like this 4 years ago or something, when we had the money, the extra money coming in, I would have been all for it, but until we can get the situation that we have no control over, unfortunately, with the revenues coming in from retail, I think we need to just wait, and I don't think the residents would be upset if we show, due diligence by not spending money that's not there.
Any other comments?
So, Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Ruzick?
so I do think that this is a tough year, or next year is going to be a tough year. I think we get beyond next year, I think things are going to look much better from a fiscal standpoint for us. There's going to be some things coming back online, like Von Mauer, I think, that are going to continue to have a positive impact financially on the village. So I'm really torn on this one. I think, have we talked about trying to get a sponsor for this?
I have, yes. I'm working on it.
You're working on a sponsor. So I guess I would be inclined to vote for one if there was a sponsor that we could find. So that I think that would be kind of show some restraint. We try it. If it's successful and a sponsor helps us, you can see what a sponsor did to the taste. I mean, it basically closed the gap. So and that was a free that's a free event. So I'd be in favor of one next year, and if we could get a sponsor to help us offset that. I don't know if that's the answer.
Any comments from you?
I guess I'll just, I guess to echo a lot of people's sentiment, I mean, I think we all want these concerts there, and it's a tough budget cycle. I mean, last year we can talk about how many programs were cut free for our residents, and we don't have to have that replay again, but we cut City Light Orchestra, which is a free concert to our residents. We cut Pandemonium, and people I know have different issues with that. We cut a lot of family programs for Wacky Wednesday. If you put all those Wacky Wednesdays together, you probably have 2,000 to 3,000 residents there. It's a tough, very, very tough year to be adding this, and just I don't know if I could support something like this and still be a good steward of the residents' tax dollar. I mean, I guess if we can find one and there was some kind of sponsorship. We have everything in place, so we know what the possible, if, say, it was a $100,000 concert and we had a sponsorship for half of it, we maybe know what the worst possible case scenario could be. I would probably be open to that, maybe, but I would have to have all those ducks in a row before I can, in good conscience, with all the things that are going on with the budget, support it.
So my comments before the vote, everyone knows where I stand on this. I think we need to be looking for budget neutral events because of the cuts that we're making. I hear everyone trying to have both sides of the issue saying they support it, but they're not going to vote for it. Well, it's the same support we've had for it since the beginning. Nobody has supported, those that aren't supporting it now didn't support it before either. So, and that's fine, but you can't have it both ways, that you love it, you wanted to do it, and we've never done it. And so I think there's an opportunity to do it. I think we need to find budget neutral events for the residents, that we can bring things to the residents that don't cost us money. We've found a way to make taste much better this year and much closer to budget neutral when it was costing us almost $100,000 a year. So we've done a really good job with that. I understand the hesitation to do 3. So I guess what I would ask is where everyone would be if we had 1 and ask for the vote. I mean, I think we know where Trustee Dodge is at, and the final vote on the budget isn't tonight anyways, and this isn't an official vote. So I guess from there, I'd just take a poll across the board floor.
I have a question, sir. You keep saying budget neutral. What is guaranteeing that if it costs $100,000 that we're going to get $100,000?
Well, there's no guarantee, but your comment is always, we're going to lose $100,000. Well, that assumes no ticket sales. Well, yeah, if no one goes, we're pretty much going to pay for everything out of pocket. So when we're planning on charging $35 a ticket, and we look at $35 a ticket at $100,000, it requires about 3,800 tickets to be sold. If you do a $50,000 event, you're cutting that down by approximately 1,200 tickets, 1,300 tickets, so you're down to 2,500 to break even, based on all of the estimates, which Nancy and her team have done a great job putting together. That includes renting the stage, that includes all of that. So all that legwork has been done, and obviously that doesn't include a sponsor, which we are working on, trying to get a sponsor for that event, so which would offset the cost even more. So I'm inclined to try and get one done, and let's do what we can to, get an act now, which is, Joe, that's what we've heard, is now the time to get it, correct?
That is correct.
We'll have the choice of acts, and we get a really good act.
Yeah, that's why I would like some direction so we can, because the next time that we're probably going to be beating on this is possibly November.
And we would know the
5th.
cost, and then we would know what
November 7th.
the ticket sales would need to be in order to break even, and what that risk would be.
So I guess it just goes back to my question. If we don't sell the tickets, where are we getting the money to cover the costs that we don't make on ticket sales?
I mean, we'd have to identify it in the budget, possibly contingency or some other place that, that we'd need to find it someplace. So, I mean, it could mean that maybe we have to postpone something, or we just have to find it within the budget. We'd have to find it within the budget someplace.
So unless it's totally sponsored, it's not a guarantee that it's budget neutral.
Well, I mean, we'll budget some revenues towards it because we know that we'll get some dollars for it. But if the concert costs $100,000 and we recover $75,000 of that between ticket sales and alcohol sales and any other sort of or sponsorships and everything, there's $25,000 gap. We'll have to identify $25,000 somewhere in the budget.
Right, so your entertainment cost just for the band, in order to charge $35 for an outside venue like that, your band is going to have to cost you anywhere between $40,000 to $60,000.
I would defer to Director Florentine. I know her and her staff have done
Flores?
Flores on that. I believe that, and I know the mayor has also worked on that too. I think the average cost is, Director Flores, can you answer what the average cost of
I think
putting on a
depending on what
concert
we're
on?
looking at, we'd like to, I mean, we had budgeted about $83,000 for someone who's not
For the
a
act and the
walker.
backup acts, right?
Right, and
That
that
was the
doesn't-
act and the backup acts.
I
So that
think-
doesn't include the stage or staff
Right.
or security or fencing or
It's
any
about
of that
100.
stuff.
Right,
So-
we've
About
worked all that out.
180,000. I think it's about $180,000 I'm looking here.
At with a $100,000 act, I've got it in front of me, a $100,000 act, I think it was, the costs were 194, and the revenue from the tickets, again, you'd need 3,800 tickets at $35 a ticket to break even at that, and that's with no sponsorships.
And
And that's with a $100,000 act, plus the backup act.
what is our exposure if the weather cancels the concert?
We had reached out to, they're called K&K Insurance, and we had reached out to them last time we were having this discussion. So in order to have any sort of insurance on the revenue piece, you'd have to have history in terms of the revenue that we would have lost. So we wouldn't be able to get insurance on that. However, the insurance regarding equipment, staging, we would have to prove it and provide the invoices and such. I don't have the price on what that insurance would actually cost, but I do have the email from them stating what the criteria would be. And Kathy mentioned this a while ago when we were talking about this in terms of rain. I think it's.
It was
from the last event.
$3,500, it was the insurance.
Okay.
That's what you have in here.
And the rain would have to be calculated from Midway, not necessarily here. So there's other factors.
But I mean, would insurance cover the entire event?
No.
No, not the revenue piece, just expenditures, and it would have to be vetted through them.
Okay, so we would still lose even if we were insured.
Not the expenditures per se, if
We-
they agreed that.
We'd have
it
to
was-
refund the revenues.
Well, I think in terms of ticket sales, are you
Yeah.
referring to?
What do you think?
I mean,
You still have to pay your band, you still have to pay for the
right,
stage,
I
you
don't
still have
think
to
you
pay for
would. I
everything.
mean, it's kind of like a rain or shine deal, and when you go to a concert.
Depends
if
on
it's
how you
rained
print the
out-
tickets, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe
yeah, we
we
could,
decide.
there's ways to mitigate it. That's something we'd have to come back with in November.
Okay, so we'd still have to pay for the performer, and we'd have to pay for the setup if it was done and then
Right.
it came
Right.
in. So we could still lose $100,000.
Well, we're gonna have to check and see what the insurance covers. I think that's what she's
Yeah,
saying.
we'll get a little bit more detail on that.
So there's just no way, in my mind, and I love music too, but there's no way we can guarantee revenue neutral. No way.
So again, I'll ask what I asked a few minutes ago, which is if we can get a vote. So can take a straw poll?
Can we take a?
Oh, okay, so trustee Garrett.
No.
Trustee Carroll.
I'd be a no, but like trustee Callan said, if we had a sponsor and we had all those answers, but as of right now, my answer is no.
Okay. Trustee Fenton.
I'd go along with trustee Carroll, what he just said. If it was totally sponsored, I would go with it, but.
So is that a no?
No.
Okay. Trustee Calendrell.
I think with a detailed budget, I can see one, maybe, but I can't say yes or no because we need the detail.
Well, they need a yes or no now just to work the detail, I
No, they
guess.
can work the details and then December come back and say, you're asking me why, this is a sponsorship we locked down. Like I said, I can see one, but I would need a solid budget because I want to know what the liability is to the
So
village.
if we approve one tonight, you guys are going to work on a budget?
We'll
and have
include,
a-
if I don't, yes, if that's your answer, I will include that one concert in the budget.
And Trustee Ruzick, you were okay with
I would
one?
Yes, I was okay with one, and you have to come back to us anyways on
Of
it,
course.
right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Of course,
so,
of
I
And we know where Trustee Dodge, and so go ahead and let's work on one.
All right,
Okay?
we'll do one concert.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Carroll.
I don't know if trustee Calendro answered you. Was that, you're approving one? You're voting to approve one?
I like to see the numbers in one and see if we can lock down an event, but I'm not approving it today. I just want to see what the numbers look like so I can tell the residents what the liability.
We still boil
possibility
down
is.
to we're going to have to approve or not approve the budget in November, so I think that's.
I'll bake it into the budget.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm unclear, was that approved or not?
He's going to bake it into the budget, and then we can approve the budget or not based on what we see in a
Well, I
month.
thought we were talking about one item.
Right, we were talking about one item. We were
So
talking
before
about.
staff bakes it in, if there was a vote, was it approved or not?
What we just got was trustee Calandrello said he needs to see the numbers baked in and see what those numbers are. Trustee Ruzick was a yes. We know that Dodge is a yes because he's passed that on to the village manager.
But he's not here.
I'm a yes. He's not here, but we're not taking an official vote tonight.
So can I just interrupt for 1 second? So I think maybe what we should do is we as staff, and I'll work on the insurance part, and we'll all work together on whatever we need to put together, and we put together what we think is going to be the actual cost. I know we have a budget here, but we'll just go into it in a little bit more detail. You can check on the acts, all that other stuff. We'll bring it back to the board on November 7th with what we think a valid revenue estimate might be, as well as spending, and then present that whole entire thing, and then you guys decide.
The only thing we might not have is the sponsorship. So that would help offset, if any sponsorship would help offset, and I know the mayor has actively been looking into sponsorship, so I think that confidently, I think I would be able to say that there'd be some sort of sponsorship.
There'll be some sort of sponsorship. I don't know
the dollar
what dollar
amount
amount we can get.
would be still.
I just need to know what the liability is to the village. That's my
Understood.
whole goal for one
Understood.
event.
Yeah, we'll get that information.
And then also what we're taking out of the budget to pay for it. So what's the reverse? Or is,
So,
because it's going to be it's
Yes,
a
we
budget
did. You
amendment?
said no, he said no, she said no, he's talking about it right now. She said yes, Jim Dodge said yes, I said yes. The official budget's not being approved tonight, which is why the clerk did not
We'll
call
have
the
that
roll.
information. We'll have that information for you on the 7th, but right now we'll get that information together.
Okay.
But
I just want to make sure the information we're getting is correct. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure it's crystal clear for everyone. So we're going to come back and it's going to be a budget amendment with the budget of how it's going to cost, the possible liability, so how much we could be losing realistically.
Yes.
And then that the money that realistically we're going to lose is going to have a cut somewhere, or we're going to find the money somewhere to pay for it. I just want to make sure, I'm not even close to yes until I get all that information. That's all I'm saying.
Understood. Understood. We'll work on getting that information together for you.
yeah,
So
so
you
the,
can make a solid, so the board will have.
So it's a true amendment where it changes and it takes money out somewhere or wherever it is. It's not like it's poof, $40,000, we just found it.
Understood.
Thank you.
And I would
So-
like to add, Joe, that it's a funding source. If it doesn't
That's what we just
cover
talked about.
itself, I want to identify
That's
that.
exactly what we just said.
Well, I couldn't hear.
So, let's move on.
you want to move on? Oh. Parks?
Good evening. Some of the higher end or higher level changes to the budget for Parks and Grounds coming in 2019 for your approval is the outsourcing of landscape maintenance to 14 village facilities. This can be accomplished by the reduction of 2 part-time and 5 seasonal positions, as well as the reduction of materials that we typically would utilize to maintain those sites. I believe that we'll get a better end product, as we will have somebody on property every 2 weeks pulling weeds, cleaning up each site to where we can't, in a timely fashion, meet that time frame. Our seasonal staff typically starts in mid-May. We typically have plantings and everything starting at the end of March, so I think this will be a win for us. I'm anticipating in 2020, moving this a little bit wider of a scope into the parks, into the ID boxes and the landscape beds there if this is successful. Additionally, outsourcing the bulk installation of playground safety surfacing. With the ERI in place, we are anticipating losing several employees. The vendor that installs playground safety surfacing over the entire playground can have that accomplished in a matter of hours, where it takes us several days, as they bring a giant semi-trailer in with a basically reverse vacuum. They blow it into the site. Again, this will allow us to have staff working on things that require a little bit more skill set than raking 5R into a playset. Another high-end attribute to the upcoming budget would be the Parks Master Plan. This is an effort to categorize each of our sites, the equipment that we have on our sites, the condition of the current equipment, and to generate a life cycle for playgrounds, as some of them have become quite a bit older. This will give everybody a document moving forward so we know how to proceed with our park system. This will involve community, focus groups, stakeholders. Everybody will be involved in this plan. I've already met with one company to try and get some background on the project. They actually completed the one for the New Lennox Park District. As John had touched on a little bit with the ERI, The two individuals that I'm anticipating losing will affect our plowing situation as we maintain all of the village properties and metro train stations. But in addition to that, we also backfill all of Public Works when they are short-staffed. So John's staff is A and B, we are C. So as they become short, we become short as well. And if you have any questions, I'm open.
Any questions? Trustee Calendar.
Just wanted to thank Gary and his staff for all their hard work. And Nancy, I didn't get to say thank you for all your hard work too. So we got into a discussion before I was able to do that. But I'm looking forward to the master plan on parks because I think we could already pump money into it now, but it will give us a roadmap to it. I know a lot of our parks are and I have the list right here, so I don't have to say, but are very, very old. I get calls constantly about parks. I have a wife that yells at me about my park. But I'm looking forward to it. I wish it was this year because I feel like we're really not helping our families because we have the schools, we have the safe community, and now we're starting to fail in our parks. And I know we're talking capital a little bit, but I just really looking forward to getting that study done earlier than sooner than later.
Any other questions or comments? So I guess I'll take one comment. I don't. So if you're saying we're failing on parks, are you saying that our parks are not safe? I guess that's the question I have to ask you.
I'm saying that the caliber of parks our residents deserves, they're not getting them. I think they're safe, yes. I think most of them are safe. Some of them are falling apart. And Gary can give you a list of how many parks and how much it costs to reorder slides. Are they safe? Yes. But are they up to the high expectation of our residents? No. And I truly believe that.
Okay, because you just said, again, they're falling apart, so that would imply, I just want to make clear that our parks are safe, and we've addressed this issue before, that our parks are safe, because obviously none of us would allow for unsafe parks to be out there. Old equipment does not mean unsafe equipment, correct?
Correct.
And my comment is that we're fixing a lot of parts, and a lot of swing sets, and a lot of slides often because of the age of our park. So yes, it's not unsafe. However, I don't think it meets the quality that our residents expect from us. And they can go to Frankfurt, they can go to New Lenox, they can go to Bolingbrook, and have better parks. And I hate to say that as someone who has a family here in Orland Park, Mr. Mayor.
Well, unfortunately, our parks, for the most part, were built well before those communities grew up and built. So that's kind of the way things work, and we have to get around, and we have to fix them. We can't fix 25, when 20-some parks were built in a 2-year period, we can't fix 20-some parks, which is why we have this study going forward, so we can come up with a plan.
Right, but we could fix 5 in a year, or 10 in a year. I understand, we can go around and around about this, but I'm just saying that it's a fact. And those are the towns we're competing with for families. And we're losing that battle.
Well, I take great exception that we don't have a family town, that we're not good for our families. I think that's very clear that we are, so I think that's a really bad message to send from on the board floor.
I think we can do better, that's all I'm saying, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, move on.
Anything else? So Cindy is here from the Civic Center. If we don't have anything really significantly changing within that budget, but if there's any questions that the board might have about the Civic Center, Cindy's here.
Are there any questions?
And I have one for you. How does the subsidy stand for the Civic Center this year, year to date?
1 second. Yeah. Yeah, so last year actually, let me look at this really quick. Sorry. In 2016, the subsidy was about $79,000. 2017, it was about $37,000. Our projected budget for 18 is 96, but I believe it's going to be much lower than that. And then for 19, we have it projected at 82. So it's gone down significantly over the years as revenue has increased.
Right.
So do we have an update this year where it's at, or can we get that before November, at least approximate?
There's 0 subsidies so far this year. We haven't transferred any funds over to the Civic Center.
Okay.
That was just a projected budget when we passed the 18 budget.
And that one other factor to look at with that is how much the village uses the facility where it's not available for rentals or any other, income source.
Yeah, and Cindy would have that type of information.
But so far this year, we haven't had to subsidize it?
Nope.
Okay.
You got off easy, Cindy.
Next?
There you go, that's okay. So we've got the officials' budget and the village clerk's budget up here. I'm not sure if we want to have any detailed conversation about it. The only significant change that we saw in the officials' budget was the discontinuance of the U.S. Conference of Mayors membership. There were some other changes that were just smaller.
Part-time intern as well.
Yeah, okay, yep.
We eliminated that because we don't need it. We didn't use it this year, so we
Yeah.
eliminated that.
And then we also had the village clerk's budget up there, if any, you or Casey or anybody wants to kind of chime in.
So, Joe, go ahead, you start.
I was just going to say that, in talking to Clerk Mahalik, that there could be some potential early retirement that could occur, whether it's in 19 or 20. And with that, Clerk Mahalik had stated that the part-time position could be eliminated to help offset some of the costs and everything, based on the number of, with my experience in the clerk's office, with the number of FOIAs, and then just agendas, special meetings, and just some of the other stuff getting organized for the codification, and just a lot of the work that is behind the scene with the resolutions, ordinances, and everything. There is a lot of work that's done down there, but in talking to Clerk Mahalik, he thought that part-time position could be eliminated based on the potential early retirement, either in 19 or 20.
Yes, we,
Clerk Mahalik.
having the goal of continuing the services we offer now, passports was the main responsibility of the part-time position. We would absorb those responsibilities with the remaining 3 full-time staff. That was our goal, so we could look at accomplishing this with doing away with the part-time position.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Ruzick.
So is that in the budget, the elimination of that, or is that just?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet, because we have not gotten
Got
the...
it. Got it.
Okay. Any other questions on the officials or the clerk?
I have a question.
Trustee Fenton.
Just wondering, under travel expenses, and in 16 it was 1,700, 17 it was 1,500, and for 19 it's projected to over triple, or over double.
So Trustee Fenton, our travel expenses.
It's not our, because none of us put.
Well, the travel
go ahead.
expenses in the officials' budget, let me pull it up here. In business travel expense budget, in the budget for 2017, which was the last budget you approved, was $7,435.
It says 1,577.
We cut that down to 2,500. We raised it back up a little bit because I went to ICSC, which we didn't realize was going to be part of the budget, but we said, I should go to ICSC, which, based on last week and landing Von Mauer was pretty critical, because that's when I sat down and had a very long meeting with the CFO of Von Mauer, because they were there, not to mention with others at the mall and other places. So it was roughly $1,500 that was pretty well spent, so we added that back into the budget for next year, since now we have a better idea of what expenditures will really be needed from that position.
So it's still going up $1,200.
Say again?
It said, so it's 25, but
The travel budget went up because I went to ICSC. If you want to have a discussion about whether or not I should go to ICSC,
Oh, no,
feel
I'm not
free.
saying- I'm not questioning that.
But it's
I'm just
it's still
questioning the
half
dollar
of
amount.
what the budget was in 2017. Last year, with no input from anyone on the board, I took out $31,000 out of our discretionary budget. This year, we took out $8,000. So net. So while travel went up $1,300 or $1,400, our overall budget went down about $4,500 more than what we were requested to take it down.
how much was the U.S. Conference of Mayors membership?
We got rid of that.
No, I understand that.
It's
How much?
about $5,200.
52?
and we had no idea, being new to the position as of last year, I had no idea what that was in there for and why it was being paid, but it had been being paid for quite some time, but it was clear this year that we definitely don't need it. We get absolutely zero out of it, so I got rid of it.
So we don't get any benefits from it at all?
Not a single thing.
Okay.
All the other conferences we get a lot of benefit from, but that one we get nothing. Any other questions?
I would, Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Guerra.
I think this is a conversation we've had almost every year about the commissioner's banquet or commissioner's dinner, however we propose it. Seems to me that attendance has been dropping each year. Last year, we didn't have half the room filled, the tables. I wonder if that's something maybe we should reconsider.
Well, last year we had about, I think, 70 attendees altogether in total. I'm not sure how many out of 110 commissioners, so I think we had pretty good attendance last year. And the budget used to be over 5,000, and we've trimmed it down to, I think it's down to 3,000 or 3,500. So we've trimmed it down significantly and got rid of a lot of the frills and just had a nice event for people who essentially give their time for nothing. And it was a nice event that I thought was pretty well attended last year. About 2/3 of our board members.
Just over half. I just wonder if the rest of the board members wanted to weigh in.
I'll leave that up to the rest of the board members. I think, given the fact you've got 100 and some, let's just say 100, $30 a head for commissioners for all they do over the course of the year to help isn't a whole lot to give them.
I don't argue with the event, I just argue if it's not well received by the commissioners, then are we wasting money?
Well, 70 out of 100 is a pretty good turnout, I think. I mean, I don't know, I haven't been here before. Did you used to get 100 out of 100? I'm guessing you probably didn't.
We used to fill a room.
Well, I mean, last year was the first year I was here. I mean, we've revamped the commissions. Last year we had 70 out of 100 people were there. So if the board so elects to kill the program, you can. And you can talk to the commissioners and let them know that you did it. I think it would be silly for what is costing, $30 a commissioner, $40 a head for who comes to the event. We've brought the cost down quite a bit. It's still a nice event. So happy to take a vote. Trustee Fenton?
Can I ask a question? Or, wait,
Sure.
Kathy, did you have a question? No. When is it planned for? Because I think that was part of the issue. They would have it like on a Friday in Lent. And when it is. I thought that they're.
You're right, yeah, thank you. That's how I.
Well, and they'd usually have it on like Valentine's Day. I mean, no
I don't
offense,
remember.
I love you.
I don't remember the date of when it was.
Yeah.
I
think
agree,
it's
Carol.
But it was
near.
It was on a Friday night, I think.
It was usually, in years past, it was usually.
I don't
right-
believe it was a Friday night. I can check my calendar to see when it
It was
was, but
usually
I
on
don't
a
remember.
weeknight.
It's usually on the weekend. But in any event, we don't have a date picked for next year.
No,
yet.
this is something that the mayor's office
Yeah,
works on.
Jennifer coordinates this with Cindy, based on availability of the Civic Center, et cetera.
Right.
Okay. Well,
Cindy, do you remember what date it was last year?
Monday, February 26th.
That
Well,
was during Lent.
that's new. It was a Monday night. 'cause-
Yeah.
And maybe that, well, I think it has, the attendance has waxed, and so, but I mean, I think if we've got the money in the budget, I'd say, let's do it again and reevaluate. I mean, these are people who donate their time, and I think
Mr. Chairman?
that's just my opinion.
Trustee Carroll.
Yeah, I agree that attendance has been down. I think there were 70 attendees, but I think that included staff and elected officials. I don't think it was 70 of the 110 commissioners. Because it appears to me over the last few years, it's been a trend that it's been going lower and lower with attendance. All that being said, having been a volunteer in this village for 40-some years, I'm in favor of keeping it if we can attract the attendees, because they do give their time freely, and I do appreciate that.
And of course, we're always open to working with everyone to get ideas on how to make it better and get better attendance, so which we ask every year. And in Jennifer's defense, it's the first one she's done, so she followed what she was left behind, which wasn't a whole lot in the way of information. So she worked with Cindy to help make that happen. So, and just like Parks and Rec, she tries to follow up to see what feedback is to try and improve for the following year. So. So again, since someone mentioned, getting rid of it potentially, we should vote across the board. So trustee Fenton?
Attendance has gone down, quite a bit from there, but if we've got the money, what the heck?
So what's your vote?
Fine.
Yes, okay. Trustee Calendro?
I think that, yes, keep it in. I think they enjoy the event, and we should thank people who give up the time. It's
Trustee Riddick?
Yes.
And my vote is yes.
Yes.
Trustee Guerra?
I'll say yes, but I would suggest that perhaps we work with Doreen or something, get some fun ideas to spruce it up.
Okay.
Nancy
So we'll
staff.
keep the commissioner's dinner. And I think Trustee Dodge was willing to go either way with it. So,
Okay, so we just have some cleanup items in the back, some different departments, some smaller departments. I'm not sure if Tom's here or not, but the Veterans Commission, we moved it out of the officials budget for 2019. It's just cleaner having it in a department of its own. There aren't really any significant changes within the budget for 2019. I'm just going to kind of keep going unless there's questions. So we have some other boards and commissions. We have the Plan Commission, Fire Police Board, and Zoning, small budget, nothing significantly different than the prior year. And I'm just kind of going through these because these are just other parts of our budget that we should at least introduce to the board in case there's any questions. Our non-departmental looks huge. This is where all our interfund transfers and things like that are. But some of the notable items, an increased transfer to the Capital Improvement Fund, and that's because we have vehicle sticker season, and vehicle sticker revenue gets transferred to the CIP fund to fund capital. Parks and Rec subsidy was reduced. We discontinued the Appearance Improvement Grant. As you guys are aware, we presented that as a cut before.
and you do know that there's potentially a $20,000 decrease in what's going to be available in that fund based on this year. I got a final amount for the lighting that we talked about. It was like 42,000 is the total cost. So if we go 50/50, it's 21.
About 21,000, okay, so we'll.
I just want to make you aware of it, so you know.
To the savings on the Appearance Improvement. So how much?
21,000.
Okay.
Mayor, did you say 21,000?
Yeah, I believe the number is 42,000 and some change.
Okay,
So
so,
is what she said was the total cost.
all right, so
And we
we'll
pay
make
half.
sure we set aside 21.
Well, we'll get it.
Yeah, we'll figure it out, but we'll
So I
we'll
just
have
wanted to
those
make you
dollars.
aware of it.
Yes.
We can talk about it in more
No,
detail.
I
I just
appreciate
wanted
it.
to make
Thank
you
you.
aware of it while it was in front of me.
Yeah,
That's
no,
about it.
thank you.
Okay.
With the goal being getting that done before the Christmas season.
Yeah.
Okay. Reduced open lands funding, that's just because not as much capital-related items are happening this year that we funded. And then we had significant purchases of holiday decorations that we won't be doing in 2019. So that's the difference in the non-departmental for next year. We have a number of other funds. I'm not going to go through them. We just kind of listed them here. Some of them are capital related. Others are just special revenue funds. We usually take the revenue from those funds and transfer them to another fund within the village, such as the motor fuel tax. We transfer that on an annual basis to the general fund, and it funds streets operations. We have commuter parking fund. We raised the rates a few years ago. We're probably going to be coming to the board as part of the 2020 budget process to consider another fair increase if necessary. Construction funds, our CIP fund, that's just all of our capital. Got a few more on the back page. Our insurance fund, that's where we account for all of the employee benefit related costs. Debt service is what it is. It's principal and interest payments on all of our outstanding debt. Our trust funds, obviously, our police pension fund is a trust fund. We fund that on an annual basis through our levy. And then we have the newly created retiree medical and OPEB fund. If you remember, the board passed an ordinance and an agreement a few months ago establishing our OPEB trust. And we've added to that the HRA funding that we're going to be doing for the retirees over the next few years. So that's a new fund for that we established in 2018 that we'll be funding in 19.
And could you help me out here? 2018 to 2019, it's about, I know that our police pension funding's been going up about 7% a year, but this is about a 15% jump next year.
Can you tell me what page
We're
you're
on
on?
page 139. So just trying to understand why that is, because this should have been a pretty good return year.
So, okay, so first of all, in these numbers, we do not budget for unrealized market returns. So the only thing you see on the revenue side is the actual dividends and interest that we actually receive. So we don't budget for any type of unrealized gain. On the expenditure side, the majority of the increase, if you look at the second line, is the pension payments. There were a number of retirees within the last year that are going to now be receiving a full year's worth of retirement payments. So that's the majority of the increase that you see there in that pension payment line item.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on anything? Anything that we covered here tonight? So, if not, Joe and I were kind of discussing earlier today that if the board so chose, instead of waiting until November 7th, we could have our budget kind of wrap-up meeting next Monday instead. It's a fifth Monday, there's no meeting.
I would suggest doing it in November, just given trustee Dodge's current commitments
Okay.
for the next couple of weeks.
All right, no problem. We can do that.
So then what we wanted to do, and we did this a couple years ago, and it really helped staff just kind of keep things organized, is use this budget amendment form. And I have a bunch of copies I can hand out to you guys, or I could send it to you electronically. And it just is what the board would use to document any changes that they would like to make to the proposed budget that we gave to you tonight. We ask that you submit those forms to us by next Monday. Obviously, if something comes in after that, that's absolutely fine, but just to kind of keep us organized and keep us on track, if you could deliver those to us by next Monday with any changes, either additions or subtractions to the budget, and then on November 7th, when we meet again, we'll actually go through each one of those amendments, and the board will vote on them on whether or not it'll be included in the budget. After we meet on the 7th, that would be our last night, hopefully, and we'd have our fully proposed 2019 budget. The finance department will put together the book that we use for publication. We'll publish it. We have to publish it for 14 days prior to the budget hearing, or the public hearing on the budget, which will be scheduled for the first Monday in December.
With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Adjourned. No, I understand. Well, it's not an official thing. The official vote is on the budget, which is what we've done with every other thing. I don't know why they didn't take a motion, because in the past, when because we're not voting on it for another month. So we have to pull it out. Sure. Because otherwise we're going to fight. Right. Which we're not at. Thanks.
John, did you show? Pardon me? Yeah, what?